Today we are in Mesh with Jimmy Westerheim. Jimmy Westerheim, founder and CEO of The Human Aspect, passionate about the humans and mental health.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Can you tell please what is the human aspect?
The human aspect is a foundation that of course is behind maybe what we're most known for, which is the life experience library. Today the largest free and digital resource on mental health, which basically is interviews like this of people that are talking to me and sharing how they managed to deal with the toughest challenge that they had in life and what they have learned from that process. Basically sharing their life experience so that others can learn and maybe find some inspiration to deal with challenges in our own lives, basically.
You have 3 core questions in the human aspect. Can we start with them?
Yeah, the first one, what has been your life's toughest challenge? And really the difference between the human aspect interviews and maybe YouTube or other interviews and maybe opera and other things is that these are really deep. The interviews are 40 to 60 minutes long. So when they're sharing their challenge and what they've gone through, they're going deep, putting words to emotions, expressing things that we maybe haven't fully seen so much. And then the second question is, how did you learn to live with it or deal with it? So now you're sharing the journey, but honestly, not like the headline where someone saying, 1, 2, 3 steps to get out of social anxiety. No, the real journey, how long it took, what you did, what worked, what didn't. And then in the end, what have you learned? And the fascinating thing about that is that almost 83% of the 600 people we've interviewed never ask themselves that question. So most of us, when we face a challenge, we're so into leaving it behind, right? You probably recognize that from your own life. The second you're finished with a challenge, you're like, done, let's move on. But now you're leaving behind the one thing that could have made this whole period worth it. The thing you learned. What did we learn from this really tough period that can make us a little bit better person going forward? So that's kind of the goal in the end, right? Is that it's challenge. But the whole point of the interview is that you need all 3 sections to really feel that this can inspire you, help you, and make you ready to make some actions in your own life, which is the goal of the interviews in the human aspect.
So not to leave the past things in the back, but to investigate them and if you made a mistake, just to fix that mistake and go forward with this. Tell me please about the podcast that you have.
The library is only one thing. We're doing a lot of other things as well. So podcast was a medium which makes it easier for people to listen, right? You can't always watch a video. Sometimes you just need something in your ears when you're working, on commuting or traveling, training. So then we thought, podcasts, we should also do that. Similar things, talking about similar topics, of course, but here we also add the expert. So in the podcast, we both have experts sharing expert advice and real people, like the interviews, sharing how they dealt with this. And in Norway, we have a Norwegian podcast that has now gotten really, really popular, where we even had a visit from the Prime Minister, and we had visits from some big experts and some normal people. But we also have an English podcast where we're taking similar topics.
How you choose heroes?
It's kind of how do you choose the people to share their story. In this is, of course, basically a lot of people reach out to us at the moment because our brand is well known now, so people contact us. And other times we see people talking about it in other mediums, and then we ask them if they want to share. And for the podcast, like for example with the Prime Minister and also the head of DNB and Hydro and other people, we just ask them. It's one thing I learned when I was very young, is that the things you think is impossible, like for example getting the Prime Minister to find time to join a podcast that it's not the big news channel or it's a small one still, you just ask. The worst thing you're gonna get is either a no or nothing. So I've never been scared of being rejected, so that's why I've always been asking different kinds of people and trying to make the impossible possible, I guess.
Yeah, that was my next question about how you was able to attract so interesting people to your podcast, like Erna Solberg and also the CEO of the DNB and Hydro, but you already get the answer, so you should challenge, you just need to ask first.
but also the strategy behind this, right? I don't know if you've heard about, it's called kind of the chicken and the eggs story of kind of how you ask, right? So of course we asked all three of them, and then of course the one who replies first says like, yeah, that's interesting, but we have to check it out. Now you go back to the other two and you say, yeah, they want to be part of it, they just want to find the date. And now they'll be like, oh, interesting, so this one is already on board, now we need to find time. And then slowly you maneuver it until all three find time. Plus you need some luck, right? We were lucky that the city was closing down a little bit more, so the Prime Minister got 2 deals cancelled, meetings, because they couldn't because of the corona situation. So then suddenly she had time, and our office is right next to the parliament, so it's easy for her to come here in safe conditions, and we were very strict about this. So she was able to do it. So fantastic opportunity.
And also that was the 8th of March, Women's Day.
It was Women's Day, of course, which was the plan as well, to talk with then women that we look up to. All of us, not just other young women look up to these, but you know, men, everybody look up to these fantastic women and what they have managed to do.
You interviewed more than 600 interviews. What insight you gained from that interviews?
From me, of course, the beauty of interviewing people is that I really enjoy it. It's the best part of my job. It's to being where you are now, basically asking the questions, right? And then listening to other people's real life. Because there's always something from each interview that you can bring into your life. That is number one, it's a perfect conversation starter. So when I go home and be like, oh, this person talked about this, Albert in his interview, he shared this. What do you think about that? And then we talk around that. And other times I'm going through something myself, and then the person in the interview reminds me or teaches me something new that I haven't thought of, that I will now go and try in my own life or address it around. But maybe the most interesting with interviewing that many people is that my mind, which has always kind of focused on the bigger picture and seen trends, I have kind of a strange mind. So now I'm starting to see trends, starting to see things that maybe is not so well known. Like for example, you know, 8 to 9 out of 10 has never asked themselves the question, why? What did they learn? Or other things that the most important thing that people pull out about how to overcome a challenge, talking about it. Seems so easy, right? So then there's certain things that starts to get really interesting now when we have interviewed that many, that can even help science and professionals in the future.
Can you tell me one of your inspiring stories that you heard from the interviews?
From people? There's so many. I think one of the more inspiring things are always the ones where you wouldn't fully think that about a person. Of course, we have some extreme stories. We have survivors from Sinai prison, you know, it's considered to be the worst prison on planet Earth that has survived that, which is extremely inspiring, right? But we also have normal people that have come in and that have been given, you know, challenges that you couldn't even imagine. Like, for example, getting cancer in a young age, or losing everyone around you in an accident, or something really, really traumatic. And then you just look at them and you think, how did you manage to get through that? And today you look like a normal person. And the most inspiring is when you see the people that have gone through something, putting it to use. Like for example, the person who has been in child services or had a tough childhood that now suddenly works in the child services and helps others, or the ones who has, you know, been a burn victim and maybe have scars on their body and now they're working with children in a burn unit, or they wanted to become a doctor, or so it's, you can realize that they haven't forgotten their challenge, they haven't run away from it, they took it and they used it. And today they're doing something that they couldn't do unless they went through that. That makes more sense to me in the way I speak about life, that things are meant to be if you take something from them. If not, it's just a waste of time, right? Then it just feels random. But if you take something from it, then I can believe that, yeah, fate, you know, karma, these things, maybe they're real.
What type of person you want to be?
I strive every day to be a person that is open. Of course, it's an important part. That's why I started the project as well. I want to be curious, which is a key asset for my job, and when I go into people's stories, and to actually be curious about it. And I also want to be someone that is leading by example. You know, it doesn't help to be the perfect leader on paper unless you actually do the things in real life. And for me, it's important to be vulnerable, especially as a man, but also in general as a leader, showing that yes, I am leading and there's different expectations to that role, but I'm also a human being. So sometimes I can have a tough day, sometimes I can make mistakes, sometimes we can do something extra good. So it's important for me to be real, to not just become this person or leader or figurehead that seems like distant. I want to be the person that I've always been. I just have different roles now, and I fill them with my personality, not expectations of who I want to be or a mask, because that's, in my world, that doesn't take you long. That only takes you to burnout or being fake or living in an unhappy life. And at the moment, at least, I feel I'm real, even though it's challenges and it's difficult times. At least I know that I'm giving it my true, authentic self, which is important.
So actually that's also the answer how you can make the world better.
Yeah, and then of course caring is an important aspect for me, because in this world it's a lot of focus on, you know, self-realization. You're supposed to learn how to be good at things, you're supposed to take care of yourself, self-care, develop yourself. Everything is possible in this generation, which is correct for many countries, not all the countries, but I want to remind people that we're not alone in this world, which is why we made a library of many people where you can learn from many people, to remind ourselves that yes, it's important to take care of yourself. It's important to try to live out the opportunities that you have and serve them to the world. But it's also important to take care of the people next to you. Right? Just before this interview, I was a little bit late because I was having a conversation with a close friend and one of my colleagues. And then it's important for me to be like saying to you, like, I'll be in 5 minutes, because I can't just run away from her. Now when I'm talking to her and we had a good conversation and a vulnerable conversation, then it's important for me to not just say that I care, but show her that I care, which I do. So it's authentic, but then I have to give myself time and space to actually be a caring person at the same time as I want to do this, because I want to develop, I want to move the brand forward, I want to show people about the human aspect, but you have to do both. You can't just do one thing in this world.
What is your dream?
My personal dream is, of course, to continue interviewing people. This is what I really enjoy, to continue to seeking into the human mind, interviewing people, learning more, but also sharing that knowledge with the world. Like I said, human aspect is also now getting important for science. But also my dream is to see more of the world and realizing how similar we are, but also how different we are around the world as one human race, and to kind of learn and see if I can take bits and pieces from all over the world and kind of share them to show how true, variety in people and diversity is actually beautiful. It's, I've always been different myself. When I grew up, I've not really felt that I fitted in. I was bullied, I come from a small place. It's just kind of the backside story of why it started the human aspect. But to show that every strange person, as I felt when I was a kid, right, is equally important and equally beautiful, and kind of wash away this concept that we have to all be the same, or we have to do that or this. It's not really interesting for me. And then of course another dream for the human aspect is that it will become an organization that carries on the values that we built it on, and that carries on the values to be able to share that with everyone around the world, and keep it free for the user, and find other ways to fund it as well. Because of course in this world it's all about, how are you going to scale, how are you going to grow, how are you going to get income and investors and all these things, and we're a foundation, which a lot of people find a bit strange, right? It would be easier if we weren't. But for me, the long-term goal, we have to be to take care of then the whole point and the brand, which is this should be accessible to everyone, no matter what. No matter if you live in South Sudan or India or Japan or the US or Norway. It should be accessible as long as you have internet. And that's very, very important to me. And then I see it as a challenge. Okay? Not a lot of foundations have managed to succeed on that element. Let's find out how to do it. Let's be the first one, right? So a lot of the things that we're doing now that is a little bit new with Corona is that, of course, when Corona came, we couldn't go and have talks anymore. We couldn't go and have talks for companies, for schools, and how to deal with mental health at the workplace. So now we have to do it digital. So that's why we have this setup.
That's why you have a lot of equipment here.
Yes, and normally, of course, there's someone else here controlling then what is basically like a mini TV production. So back in the day, you had like 10 people, right? Big studio. Today you have a small device like this, one person, camera, lights, and then you have a full TV production almost. So now, normally, I'm standing over here, and then I'm having the talk. So I'm basically talking straight into a lens. So normally you would have an audience, which is nice, you know, you feel if are you funny now, are they relaxed, is it interesting? No, it's nothing. It's really strange to talk to the lens for the first time and try to be, I'm very engaged when I'm talking and I really love what I'm doing, but there's no feedback from anybody. So that makes it a new process to learn. But luckily now we can have a talk for people everywhere. Now it's not limited just to where we can travel. Now we can have a talk to someone in Ukraine, a big company in Ukraine. We could have a talk for them tomorrow, now, right? So it gives us both new opportunities and some challenges that needs to be overcome. So this time has been both fascinating, but at the same time it's been a good challenge for us to show why mental health is so important, and also for me to grow myself as well as a speaker and as a person. So this is a fantastic way to reach people that we're doing now, and it's one of the important elements of the human aspect right now, having talks for schools, businesses, and in general for the public.
And how the people on the other side, do they have the same equipment when they
They're
connect
just
with you?
watching. They get a link from us with like a YouTube video, but it's live. So they can also send in questions.
So probably you're just making live streams from here. So
Yeah.
and not interviews, but mostly like
Live
podcasts
streams, yeah.
and live streams.
Yeah, so talks. We're giving talks, but the interviews are still done physically because of course, the equipment and also the energy and the trust that needs to be in such an interview. That's not possible for us to do digital. So that we're doing physically, under of course safe then distance and conditions. So talks digital and everything else is physical when it's possible.
For what in your life do you feel most grateful?
Most grateful, it must be the people that I have around me, and of course the opportunity as well to have the mind and the life that I've had, because that's the whole point behind the human aspect. If I wasn't who I am today, I wouldn't be doing this.
And question number 2, what is your most treasured memory?
Oh, most treasured memory, there's so many, but I've been fortunate enough to travel quite a lot around the world, and some of my most treasured memories are when you actually see other people that you don't know how to talk to in audio or verbally, and you manage to communicate with them through, you know, other ways of talking. So I was in Mozambique. They speak Portuguese. It was far outside in kind of like a little rest stop, and I made a ball out of kitchen towels and duct tape, and I saw some kids looking at me and they weren't really communicating, so we didn't know how to talk to each other, and I just took the ball, looked at them, and they were looking really like, and I threw it up in the air towards them, and everybody knew what to do. All the kids, even the adults, everybody came out, even like an old guy, he was like 60 years old, where like everybody was throwing the ball to each other, smiling and laughing, and not even sharing almost one word. So it's kind of beautiful how we can communicate even though we don't share the same language.
And what is your most terrible memory?
Terrible memory. I guess it's easy to say my accident and back injury, where I really felt that obviously I lost everything, but also losing people. Like my grandmother was the most important person in my life, lost her to cancer, bullied as a kid. So it's a lot of things, but I guess the toughest memory that I have that is quite new is to feel that something that you're so passionate about, which I am about the human aspect and mental health, is so slow, right? We know we have something that can help people. It's free, it's available. We know that the way we are thinking might help the system in Norway and other countries, but it's so slow. So we really wish that we could move things forward. I guess that's every entrepreneur's little nightmare, right? That things are slow.
And the last question, what roles do love and affection play in your life?
I'm so lucky now that I find the one, the love, at least that's how it feels like. So for me, first and foremost has been the love from, of course, my friends and my family and my best friends that have been around me, but also all the colleagues. You know, the human aspect is built by hundreds of people. We're 55 people in the team now, and some of them are my closest friends. We have been here every day for 5 years working together. So that kind of love. But like I said, now also found, you know, the love, and that brings you an element that it's just extra, right? Someone that truly believes you, someone you can be fully vulnerable with, but also someone that understands you. And I've been really struggling to find that my whole life. So for me, it feels almost unreal, but also someone that you can do things with and share new memories and experiences, because I've been quite alone in all my experiences because I've always been a little bit strange. I haven't always shared it with so many, but now I can share it with her, and that for me is extra beautiful. And of course, affection around that is important, I think, to be able to feel that when you do, either from friends, family, and or, you know, your romantic love.
How does your business attract customers online?
You know, as you know, first and foremost, most of our things are for free, so it attracts people in that way, that they're users. But we're also selling talks, like I just showed you in the beginning of the video as well. We're doing big talks for big corporations, for companies, and for schools about how to deal with both the corona situation, where I'm using my background from Doctors Without Borders and as a mental trainer, but also the human aspect, but also companies about how to take care of mental health, how to create that psychological safety and stability to kind of rise up, taking care of your employees. So we are attracting digital customers like that. And then of course in the future as well, we have certain elements of the platform that will be available only to professionals and therapists and people that will use it in a professional setting. And they will also be digital clients, of course, of that new platform.
Who is responsible for digital marketing activities in your company?
I'm supposed to say him now, but you know, the Zoomer is sitting in the background. No, we're talking about Love earlier as well. Like, he's been one of the people that have been here for the longest, so he's been fantastic support, and we've grown obviously super close friends. And basically feel like we're family now. So we have important people. We're, you know, myself, him, and also Kaylee, another person that is working here from the US. It's a half Norwegian, half American. She's also managing marketing, but the team is 55 people. So we have like a full team that is focused on that. Yeah. It is turned into a big team. Of course, many of them are volunteers still, but it's a family. It's a proper team. It's a startup team that will build this together. That's why it's kind of extra nice and extra motivating as well.
In Norway and in Oslo, its ecosystem is starting to grow more and more from year to year. And for example, if a startup company cannot afford to hire a digital marketer, for example, how are they supposed to get started with online marketing?
I think the most important thing with online marketing is that, number one, you have a lot of content out there that you can learn for free. It's the way that we did, and there's a lot of people out there as well that are willing to support you if the idea is good. Or even if you're a startup, you could even offer some shares, you know, we're a foundation, so we can't do that, but others could potentially do that. And there's so much good people out there working on that now. And for us, we took in some students. It's a good tip as well if you're a startup, taking in someone that is studying marketing at the moment, that is really engaged, but also that knows a lot from before. That's also what we did. And Ymir, who was managing that and leading that team, he was also very young, and he was also studying it on his own. So that's a good thing to do when you're a startup, to either go for students, volunteers, or be able to offer shares or other things to people that want to be part of your idea. But first, And foremost, the best person to market your own idea and passion is yourself, because you obviously have the energy. So if you're managing then to convince someone, it's a good start, right? If you can convince them, he or she would be able to convince other people digitally. This is what I think. The interview that changed me the most, I think, must have been an interview that's more similar to basically my own story, and interview that was a little bit shocking in the sense that you have never thought of that element before. So I heard a story, of course, of something that was similar to my own story, where someone has gone through a tough challenge, but I interviewed my own half-brother, and I hadn't seen him in 21 years. So that was strange. So that's probably the one that changed me the most, because I heard my own story from his perspective. So he shared how our dad was kind of abusive to him, and how our dad both, beat him up, but also what happens to him after. So I never really thought of the story from his side. He was just a half-brother of mine that was in and out of my life. And when we're younger, we focus more on the way that we deal with it. But hearing fractions of my own story, that was kind of a little bit away. It was hidden for me. It was black spots. From him and his perspective, truly probably changed how I was looking at stories as well, and how we experience life. Because then it actually is bits and pieces that you're missing. So for example, the theory of Johari's window, right, which is very interesting, is that how certain things are hidden from you, and that your experience of life isn't complete. So you need other people. You need, 360-degree evaluations. You need to ask people around you, how did you experience that? This is how I experienced it. And suddenly you can fill in more blanks to understand more of who you are, which for me is probably what changed me the most, to realize that, and then be more humble about how other people as well see what happened, and realizing that maybe the thing and the way that you see life isn't always black and white. So maybe you should have some humility around that other people might experience as different. So, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the book that I want to ask about. Inspiring the world through stories. Mm-hmm. What is this book about?
This book was made in the early beginning of the foundation, and it is about basically the concept of this, the human aspect. So we have taken beautiful pictures of 21 different people, 7 pictures from each section. So 7 about the challenge, 7 about how they dealt with it, and 7 about the lesson. Here we have the designer, and here we have the photographer. And it's 10 ambassadors that we have interviewed that are sharing an essay about what they are most passionate about. So it's a coffee table book. Pictures and stories.
Thank you very much. I will read it and I will write a good review about it. No, I will write honest review, not good review. I will write honest review.
Much better. So if it's bad, you write a bad one.
Yeah. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Jimmy, the founder of the Human Aspect. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.